When I got back from lunch, there were already two men standing at my desk, both in suits that screamed, "Too expensive for a Wednesday." One of them was flipping through my sticky notes like they were legal evidence. The other was holding my work laptop like it had just tested positive for anthrax. I didn't ask anything. I just watched. "Ma'am," the one with the thinner tie said without looking up, "we've been instructed to collect all assets. Your access has been revoked." That's cute. Because while they were rummaging through my drawers like a pair of budget FBI agents, I still had the app open on my phone, the one no one knew about, the one that said, "Route connected." I gave them a polite nod, placed my kale salad next to the stapler they'd just fingerprinted, and said casually, "Let me grab my purse." I didn't grab my purse. Instead, I reached under this chair where I'd taped a drive months ago, slid it into the inside pocket of my jacket, and walked right past the framed quote outside HR. "We're all one team here." A joke so dark, it bordered on performance art. 5 minutes later, I was standing in line at the parking garage when my phone pinged. Not a message. A system log. 1436. Unauthorized instance access attempt detected. 1437. Tier 3 permissions escalated by user. System E38. Asset media initiated contingency mode. 1539. Failover countdown initiated. T minus 7 hours, 21 minutes. I looked up. The guy behind me was chewing gum like it owed him rent. The parking attendant waved me through without eye contact. Everything looked normal, except it wasn't, because media wasn't supposed to wake up. Not unless something had gone really, really wrong. Not unless someone tried to rewrite her spine. And if someone had gotten high enough up the food chain to trigger that kind of protocol, they weren't just poking around. They were trying to own her. And the best part? No one upstairs, not the golden parachute executives, not the compliance guys who wrote the manuals, none of them knew what she really did when she panicked. They thought they'd fired me like a clean spreadsheet correction. What they'd actually done was detonate a tripwire buried so deep in the company's infrastructure, even I had forgotten some of the fail-safes I'd wired in. And now they were going to call me for help in about 7 hours, on their knees, unless media beat them to it. The first call came from Martin in DevOps. His name flashed on my screen as I was stuffing laundry into a dryer at the 24-hour place on 6th. My new condo didn't have appliances yet. Martin, this guy, used to bring me coffee every Tuesday. Double espresso. 2 sugars, no lid. Now his voice sounded like he'd reverted to a nervous teenager. "Jules, we've got a situation." "You mean besides erasing my profile from the org chart like it was mold on an orange?" Silence. Then, "Client-side sync just duplicated 20,000 invoices across the EU node. Billing systems are in an infinite loop. No one can override it. Legal's already screaming." I pulled a quarter from my pocket, flipped it. Tails, I hang up. Heads, play God. It landed edge down against the lint trap. "Media's awake," I said quietly, "and she doesn't take betrayal lightly." "What?" "Nothing," I replied, standing up. "How's the failover handling cache migration?" More silence. Because Martin didn't know. No one knew. That system wasn't on any official flowchart. I'd built it with root-only access and named it something that sounded like a tragic Greek play for a reason. "You need to come in," he finally said, barely above a whisper. "I don't need to do anything." "Jules, this could crater the Zurich contract." I looked across the street. Some guy in a banana costume was yelling at a bus driver. Somewhere in Zurich, a partner executive was probably staring at a real-time dashboard graph diving straight into hell, like it owed Hades money. "Tell corporate," I said, "that if they want media to calm down, they'll need to send someone with more authority than a middle manager having caffeine withdrawals." Then I hung up. Because the truth is, media wasn't broken. She was thinking. See, when I built her, I wasn't trying to win awards. I was just tired. Tired of the gaslighting. The performance reviews that read like bullet-pointed death threats. The layoffs dressed up as reorgs. So I gave her teeth. Logic gates tied to behavioral patterns. Passive-aggressive logging scripts. Keyword traps that would lie dormant 4 months until one executive slipped and used a word like replaceable in an email. She caught them all, especially Aaron. Ah yes, Aaron, the golden boy COO. The one with a LinkedIn profile full of TED Talk cliches and a heart made entirely of mist. He triggered the final clause. Not the layoff notice, the second email. The one that said, just keep her sweet until we've cloned the middleware. That's what woke her. Because media, she doesn't like being cloned. 3 hours later, Zurich was offline, not lagging, not glitchy, flatlined. Their entire Q4 audit pipeline built on our custom data interface was vomiting null packets like it had eaten bad sushi. I didn't hear it from Martin this time. I heard it from Hector, my former intern. He sent me a single-line text. They're in the war room. Aaron just said your name like it's a slur. I laughed out loud in the frozen aisle of the grocery store, one hand still holding a pint of Tenti. Some poor college kid backed away from me like I was about to throw hands. I left the ice cream and walked out, because now it wasn't just tech, it was chess. And I was playing blindfolded with a board I had built and rigged. By 5:42 p.m., things had truly started to spiral. Their internal Slack channel exploded. And when I say exploded, I mean screenshots were hitting Reddit before legal could even draft a please delete email. Some poor intern, probably terrified out of their mind, accidentally posted a debug image in a private thread and tagged "add everyone." The message? Dev team investigating malicious protocol injection from deprecated automation kernel, possible insider asset manipulation, no root override found, initiating system lockdown. Let me translate that for you. Me, that insider asset they were panicking about. Yeah, still breathing, still watching. And then 10 minutes later, I got the email. Subject line, urgent request for consultation from Aaron S. Lanning, Chief Operating Officer. Even the font reeked of syrupy panic. Julia, we understand there may have been a miscommunication regarding your transition. We'd greatly appreciate your insight into some recent platform inconsistencies. Please let us know a good time to connect. Transition. That word is corporate for we dumped you, but we're going to pretend it was your idea. I forwarded the email to myself. No reason. Just something to frame and hang in the bathroom. Maybe above the litter box. Then I opened the admin panel. Media's heartbeat signal? Amber. Not red, not green, just amber. That meant she was waiting. One keystroke from me, and Zurich would come back online. Systems would stabilize. Pipelines would realign like nothing ever happened. But I didn't press it. Not yet. Because I hadn't gotten the one thing I needed. The truth. So I started digging. Not through their systems. Through mine. Why was there a VPN ping from Singapore? Why was someone logged in with a username that looked at almost exactly like mine, but wasn't? It hit me hard, the kind of cold clarity that stings. They hadn't just fired me. They were replacing me. And media? She knew, because I gave her one last trick before I left. A protocol so obscure no one in the compliance department had a clue it existed, not even the devs I trained. The last time that Singapore credentials showed up was 2 weeks before I got that transition email. And I remembered that day vividly, not because I was in Singapore, I wasn't, but because that was the same day Aaron's assistant conveniently scheduled a meeting during my architecture walkthrough, then locked me out of the Zoom room. They called it a permissions glitch. Turned out, the glitch had a name, Sophia TR. According to LinkedIn, her title was Senior System Strategy Analyst. Her profile pic looked like it had been filtered through a K-pop album cover. 6 weeks with the company. Division, Special Ops. Reporting line, straight to Aaron. I found her buried in our GitHub commit history. A new SSH key, one I didn't recognize. Her commits started out small, innocent even. Naming tweaks, comment refactors. But then I saw it. Subtle shifts in media's decision tree. She was trying to retrain the engine, trying to make her obey. That's when I knew. This wasn't just downsizing, it was identity theft. Aaron hadn't just replaced my position, he was trying to rebuild me from scratch. But here's what they didn't know. Media doesn't trust strangers. Not unless I personally fed her trust tokens, each one time stamped, bound to a biometric hash, and digitally signed by me. Sophia? She tried to fake a token. Media didn't just reject it, She logged it, blacklisted it, and then she activated the watchdog protocol. That meant everything Sophia touched, every email, every commit, every screen share got siphoned into a hidden archive. She even recorded video calls. So at 7:13 p.m., I sat in my tiny half-furnished condo eating a microwave dinner and watched a Zoom recording titled JT Clone Contingency. On screen, Aaron, Sophia, and a third exec from finance. They spoke like I was already gone. She's brilliant, but she's inflexible. We don't need her, just the system. Sophia, how's the middleware port coming? Almost done. Once it's live, we push the retirement narrative. We've already reclassified her stock options under the Q3 adjustment. Legal says it's airtight. They were already spending the bonus they stole from me. At 7:26 p.m., I opened media's panel. Heartbeat, amber. Watchdog, active, off-my-ass. Fail-safe, Q. Staging. I typed a command I hadn't used in years. Initiate Hecate. It asked for voice confirmation. I leaned in, whispered one word. Burn. Across 6 global servers, media began to work. Quietly. Precisely. She started poisoning her own clone, scrambling non-essential modules, injecting latency pings, dropping error logs like sugar into gas tanks. But she wasn't finished, because I'd given her one last gift, something called exposure, a protocol designed to reveal the entire truth when the time was right, not destroy the system, but humiliate it. They didn't even notice the first wave. That was the genius of it. I didn't crash the platform. I embarrassed it, quietly, publicly, fatally. Zurich's audit reports began reassembling with every timestamp shifted by exactly 13 hours. Not enough to flag alarms, but just enough to invalidate half of Q4's financial filings. And then came the second ping. Singapore endpoint still active. Only now it was coming from inside their own firewall. Media had rerouted the traffic through a ghost VM using Sophia's forged token. She logged the activity under CEO review prep. And the best part? Every exec on the system got a copy, courtesy of a Slack user named JT Ghost No Avatar. No chat history, just one message. Funny how you tried to copy the system, but forgot who built the soul. Aaron deleted it in 3 seconds. But Hector? He screenshotted it in 2 and sent it to half the company. By midnight, panic had set in. The war room originally in conference room D had moved to conference room B, the bigger one with the frosted windows and double espresso machine. The CTO flew in from Boston. Sophia? Nowhere to be found. Her Slack status had gone offline. Her GitHub account, deleted. Phone, straight to voicemail. My old team, Maria, Davis, Reggie, they were getting grilled like they were part of a digital coup. I could imagine them, back stiff, trying not to look too innocent. Shar from HR was busy blasting out reminders about confidentiality policies. Legal was scrambling to draft a containment memo with all the urgency of someone trying to stitch a severed artery using a napkin. Meanwhile, I was watching it all from my private live stream, one I'd named Skyfall as a joke. Just a simple dashboard feed, black and white, mood indicator, colors from media's system logs. Tonight, blood red, at exactly 1:03 a.m., she dropped the nuke. Log entry, internal git fork detected. Sophia/middleware final fork. Integrity name, compromised. 1486 lines replaced with auto-generated Markov chain gibberish. Tag added to header. You shouldn't have tried to erase her. Then she pushed it live. Production servers didn't crash. They imploded. The clone Sophia's clone went viral in all the worst ways. Glitches, loops, phantom values. One client's dashboard showed net revenue infinite shrimp. Another, confidence score, Jesus wept. And all of it, every byte was signed with Sophia's token. Broadcast through her commit history. Traceable, time-stamped, irrevocable. At 1:27 a.m., my phone rang. Aaron, I let it ring, once, twice, then answered. His voice was soaked in desperation. Julia, I don't know what you think you're doing. I cut him off. Don't worry, Aaron, this isn't vengeance. Pause. Then what the hell is it? It's proof, and then I sent him the video, the Zoom recording, their voices plotting my replacement. I waited. There was a long breath, a chair scraping, and one word barely whispered, shit. Then I hung up. Because media had already queued up the final act, and the world still hadn't seen the real betrayal. By sunrise, the headlines were sprouting like weeds in a damp boardroom. Startup COO accused of cloning proprietary AI without consent. Whistleblower reveals secret surveillance in enterprise middleware AI sabotage or executive coup. Inside the Julia Tran protocol. And no, I didn't leak the story, media did. Through a dead man's switch, I wrote on a dare one that would only activate if I was completely removed from the system and someone attempted to execute a privileged command using a cloned signature. She sent the logs to 3 reporters, a former in-house legal associate who despised Aaron, a tech journalist sniffing around IPO rumors, and my sister-in-law, who works PR for a hedge fund and loves scandal more than she loves yoga. The video was partially redacted, faces blurred, names censored, but the voices, crystal clear, especially Sophia's. Once she's out, we'll reframe it as a strategic refresh. Just spin it like she wanted early retirement. Then they laughed. That laugh, Sophia's smug, nasal, we've already won cackle. Except now she was gone. Ghosted, phone dark, socials wiped, Git history torched. Even her LinkedIn profile had vanished. Meanwhile, media was no longer red. She'd turned violet. That was the final state. The one no one knew about. Not even the dev team I hand-trained. Violet meant one thing, retribution armed, non-lethal, but humiliating, and very, very public. At exactly 9:12 a.m. Every client dashboard refreshed with a message. System optimization update in progress. Original architect available for consultation. And below that, a link to my personal portfolio site, a site I hadn't updated in 5 years. Suddenly, it had 34,000 hits. Recruiters flooded my inbox. Keynote requests. A podcast invite titled The Woman Who Engineered Her Own Resurrection. And me, I was sipping coffee in a hoodie that read, retired, not replaced. Then the audit hit. And I don't mean some boring compliance checklist. I mean a compliance nuke. Turns out, in trying to clone my work, Aaron and his squad had tripped every regulatory wire the company had swept under the rug. GDPR violations, intellectual property theft, contractual breach with Zurich, unauthorized access across jurisdictional boundaries. Zurich's lawyers didn't send an email. They sent a courier to Aaron's house, hand-delivered cease and desist. Meanwhile, Aaron sent me one last message. What do you want? I stared at it. 5 minutes passed, then I typed, the truth, on record, or I release everything. No reply, not right away. But 3 hours later, the board received a calendar invite for a live stream titled Internal Review, Cloning Contingency and Governance Failure. It had exactly one CC, Julia Tran, Observer. The last time Aaron stood in front of a camera, he was ringing the opening bell on a billion-dollar valuation. This time he was standing in front of the board, explaining how he nearly burned it all down trying to clone the one person who built the system that made it possible. The live stream started like every other corporate cover-up session, generic suits. Buzzwords tossed around like confetti, and the kind of faux sincerity you can smell through a screen. This time, though, the audience wasn't shareholders. It was journalists, employees, clients with frozen dashboards, and me, sitting barefoot on my couch wrapped in a hoodie, drinking tea from a mug that read, World's Okayest Engineer. Aaron looked like a ghost in a funeral suit. His perfect coif had wilted. Sweat glistened on his temples, like guilt that couldn't decide where to drip first. Next to him sat Miriam from legal, blinking so fast you'd think she was trying to send Morse code with her eyes. Sophia, still MIA. Aaron cleared his throat, switched on that CEO cadence that's supposed to sound like leadership, but always smells like fake cologne and scripted remorse. We've identified a critical misstep in our systems replication initiative. I nearly spit out my tea. Systems replication initiative. That's what he was calling corporate identity theft now. We acknowledge that our internal oversight failed to detect unauthorized architectural transitions, which led to system instability. You could practically hear the collective sphincters of the board tightening through the stream. And then came the pivot. Julia Tran's contributions were foundational. Her departure was mismanaged. We regret that it led to cascading platform issues. Translation: we tried to erase her. We failed. And now we're bleeding out on a live stream. Then Aaron took a step to the side. The feed shifted, and suddenly it was my face on screen. I hadn't agreed to that. I hadn't turned on my webcam. Media had. She dragged me right onto the stage I built. But I didn't flinch. I looked straight into the lens and said, calm and steady, "For 22 years, I gave you a fortress. You fired the architect, then handed the keys to a con artist. And now you wonder why the walls fell down." There was a collective gasp on the board side. Probably someone in finance realizing they'd just watched their stock options catch fire. I continued, "This wasn't a mistake. It was a coup. I wasn't let go because I failed. I was removed because I couldn't be controlled." I paused. Let the silence settle in like dust. Media didn't malfunction. She obeyed her prime directive: protect the system from those who would weaponize it. And you tried to weaponize me. Then I did the unthinkable. I clicked share screen. What popped up next was a folder titled Operation Puppet. Inside were emails, Slack threads, meeting logs, every single document relating to Sophia's recruitment, every detail of how they planned to strip me out of my own architecture, to steal my work, rebrand it, bury me. It was all there. Redacted? No. Raw. Aaron tried to speak. I muted him. Then I ended my segment with one last sentence. You built a company on code you never understood. You tried to clone the brain and forgot it had a spine. Then I logged off. My inbox detonated within seconds. Apologies, job offers, lawyers, even an email from a film producer asking if the rights were available. But none of it mattered, because media still had one more protocol, and she was waiting for one final whisper. The next morning, I walked into HQ like I owned the place. Technically, I still had my badge. They'd never revoked my guest consultant credentials. And media? She'd reactivated my internal clearance at 3:12 a.m. I moved through the building like a ghost in plain sight. Security nodded as I passed. Maybe they didn't know, or maybe they didn't care anymore. The building smelled different, like anxiety reheated in a microwave. The elevator to the 16th floor opened to glass walls, forced smiles, and that distinct scent of shredded NDAs. I didn't knock. I walked straight into Aaron's office. He looked up from his desk, pale, damp, defeated. His eyes said, "Please." His mouth knew better than to say anything. Smart choice. I placed a red flash drive on his desk. Label, Backup Trust Media. He stared at it like it might explode. "Everything you lost," I said, "is on here. Customer nodes, pipelines, Zurich's full rebuild protocol. Restored, clean, stable." His voice finally creaked through the wreckage of his ego. Why are you doing this?" I leaned in slightly. "Because chaos doesn't scale, but humiliation, that spreads. And I'm done with both." He reached for the drive. I slammed my hand on top of his. "You'll get it," I said, "after 3 things happen." He nodded slowly like he already knew what was coming. I kept my hand on the flash drive, eyes locked on his. "1," I said, "you resign, publicly, today, citing executive misconduct and oversight failure." His lip twitched like he wanted to argue, but the fight in him was long gone. He nodded. "2," I continued, "all my unvested stock restored. Retroactive, with the bonus." Still no protest, just a small, defeated nod. The kind of nod that says, "Yeah, this is the cost of keeping your company from going up in flames." "And 3," I said, leaning in, my voice ice cold, "I want Sophia's name erased." He blinked. "What?" "I mean gone, wiped. No bylines, no commits, no plaque, no credit. She didn't build this. I did. I don't share oxygen, much less legacy, with ghosts." Aaron deflated like a birthday balloon 3 days too late. He nodded. I slid the flash drive across the desk. Then I stood, turned, and walked out. No security escort, no applause, just the rhythmic echo of my boots on marble floors. That sound alone felt better than any standing ovation. As I reached the front doors, media pinged me. "Mission complete. Threats neutralized. Optional action. Delete backup. I paused, then typed back, no, let them remember. That night I watched the live stream. Aaron called it a personal decision, said it was time to step back and reflect on new opportunities. The board thanked him for his leadership during a challenging period. Sophia's name was never mentioned, but that wasn't the best part. The best part? Every single slide in the new roadmap deck, the one they presented to investors, clients, in the world ended with the same line in bold white letters. Architecture restored. Thank you, Julia. I didn't come back. Why would I? I wasn't interested in rebuilding what they tried to tear down. I was already building something else, something leaner, sharper, meaner, a system that would never be cloned, bought out, or stolen. Something with a spine and a soul. Because if they wanted to play with fire, I'd give them a flame that remembers every hand that tried to steal it. Thanks for watching. And if you've ever been underestimated, replaced, or written off, remember this. They only try to copy what they can't recreate. They only replace you when they know they can't replace what you are. Subscribe for more. We're just getting started. Let's make your former coworkers sweat.